Previously on Broken Window Theory. On the second day in Italy, we were exploring our first abandoned asylum. It's a huge compound with 20 buildings in total, but not all of them are abandoned, so we had to keep a low profile. Once, mentally ill patients were treated here with an electroshock therapy and experimental approaches. But due to the size of the place, we weren't able to explore the whole facility. After all, we wanted to visit 2 more abandoned sites this day, which you will see in this episode. It's already in the late afternoon when we reach the glade of a small piece of woodland somewhere in Italy. We just cooked ourselves some lunch and we are about to start exploring this impressive place. It's an abandoned medieval castle that's been rotting away for several decades now. Okay, just to be clear about one thing, this isn't actually a castle from the time of the Middle Ages. But yes, because of the architecture and the design, this derelict mansion was supposed to look like a medieval fortress. This place has even arrow loops. However, the manor house was constructed at the beginning of the 20th century. At this point, the Dark Age had been long gone. Why the look was copied anyway will be explained in just a bit. But let's take a peek at the inside of the remarkable estate first. As you can see, the whole building unfortunately is completely empty. All the furniture had been removed already a long time ago. In some of the rooms, even the wood flooring was stolen. The reason why we came here anyway is obviously the stunning architecture on the one hand, and on the other hand all those fascinating frescoes. The history of this fake castle already begins in the 12th century. In medieval Italy, a stronghold was built that looks surprisingly similar to this one. Through the centuries, the original was reconstructed and extended many times. While it was used for military purposes at first, the castle later became an aristocratic residence. Since the construction, the palace was owned by one single family, and it was supposed to stay that way. But in the end, this was the reason why the fake castle we are exploring today was built in the first place. In the late 19th century, it turned out that the count who was supposed to inherit the property wasn't a direct descendant of the castle's builder. Even after a long-standing family dispute, he ended up empty-handed. The word is that his wife threatened to leave the Baron if he didn't get the castle. But she was the daughter of a wealthy foreign businessman, and the Count was relying on that power and money. So, he wanted the castle at all costs. Ultimately, it was probably his megalomania that gave him the idea to simply clone the palace. In order to do this, the Baron hired a prestigious architect who was nearly able to replicate the original. And the best part of the story? The copy is located only around 200 meters off Beeline, next to the real castle, which you can see in the background now. Only human mind is able to come up with such an insane idea. However, during the time of World War II, the Count and his wife both died because of old age. The son was spending some more years in the luxury home of his parents, but in 1955 he also left the site. It's said that the manor house has been abandoned since then. Around 20 years ago, the building was partly refurbished in the hope that a new owner will be found. But till today, there is no potential buyer. The costs to bring the terrain to a habitable state are simply too overstated. We also turn our back on this site now. Evening has already arrived and we don't have much more time until sun sets. But one more abandoned place is still on our list for this day. From afar, we can already see those massive cooling towers, which aren't our destination anyway. Those are part of a thermal power plant, which isn't active anymore indeed, but we're not in the mood for an intense infiltration action right now. But in the shadow of the tremendous powerhouse, one of the many ghost towns of Italy is located. Already at the entrance to the village, a nice surveillance cam is greeting us. Actually, there is CCTV on the whole compound. We believe that all those cameras are either connected to the power station next door, or that they're supposed to scare away vandals. However, we're not afraid of them, and so we're starting the exploration of this eerie ghost town. It's a whole village that was simply abandoned by its residents. This place has a moving history, and once it was even in possession of famous Napoleon Bonaparte. Later it was owned by an important Italian statesman, who also had his country house here. But today everything lies in ruins. An apocalyptic atmosphere unfolds here, which intensifies because of the intimidating cooling towers nearby. Already for decades people haven't been living here anymore, and by now nature has reclaimed the area. Also, the history of this village goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. Already 1000 years ago, rice was cultivated here. The land was really fertile, and that's why many farmers settled here. What started as a monastery became a huge farm, and many years later it was transformed into a whole village. After the land changed hands several times, more and more people were leaving the settlement in the 20th century. Reasons were especially all the modern cultivation methods. Less and less workforces were needed here for growing. And on the other hand, environmental pollution was also a big reason why farmers weren't able to gain any profits from the agriculture anymore. Until the 1960s, all the residents moved away and decay started. Today, most of the buildings are ruins, marked by vandalism, but one structure was spared for the longest time. Since a very short time ago, the church of the village is accessible, and that's also the reason why we came here in the first place. 2 years ago, this building was broken into for the first time. After that, the house of God was sealed and cameras were installed. Now it's open again, but probably not for long. So we want to use that time frame, because something like this is completely new to us. An abandoned old church in such a remarkable condition. It was built in the style of the Baroque, and inside the whole house of God there are beautiful details which have luckily been spared by vandalism so far. You could almost think that this place is still in use. apparently, only a very short time ago, books were burned here. There are occult rituals inside abandoned churches all the time, so maybe this was also the case here. We also just found a junction box inside the church, and it's still active. It seems like the cameras and even an alarm are connected to this. However, maybe someone turned both off, because we don't have any problems exploring the site so far. In the last Abandoned Italy episodes, we were promoting the photos of our friend Toby. But now it's time to share our own content again. If you like these shots, you can find more of them on Facebook, Instagram or Flickr too. You don't even need an account on those pages. Just follow the links in the video description down below. And if you want to have access to all of our Urbex photos, feel free to support us on Patreon with $1 single per month. There is no hope to rescue neither the whole village nor the single church. Although it was partly inhabited by some employees of the power station somewhere in the 80s, the resettlement didn't last for long. The village is just too remote, and the local authority sees no purpose in setting up a plan for revivification. But with its 1,000-year-old history, this place is a part of the region's cultural heritage. But unfortunately, there is no way to gain profit out of this. So this site, as well as the fake castle nearby, both will go to wreck one day and sink into oblivion. Next time on Broken Window Theory, it's the morning of our third day in Italy and we woke up to this. The night before, we found shelter in a derelict church that is even more beautiful than the one in this video. We nearly spent the whole day exploring this secluded monastery. And as a neat bonus, there is also an abandoned hospital on the property. Prepare yourself for one of our Italy highlights. If you're a friend of high quality Urbex content, make sure to subscribe to the channel of the proper people. We were exploring abandoned Italy together, and it will be interesting to see all the places again through their camera lenses. They just uploaded their first video of our trip. Go watch it and say hi from us in the comments.